And we'll see you prospectors later. Bye. And we'll pretend to talk to each other.
Shuffle papers.
Good to see people not taking themselves too seriously. There's no need for that in life. There's too much seriousness in the world. We don't need to bring it into our workplace. Good job, you two. So we've just finished a new stream done by the Icarus crew. It was, I don't know, was it about an hour or something like that? I'm just going to summarize everything for you into this short 15-minute clip. The background music, by the way, that you can hear is the Twitch stream background music. It's sort of that ethereal, spacey type stuff, which I really enjoy hearing. Rapid fire, I'm going to move through everything here and don't expect too many details on anything. I'm just going to summarize what they said in the order they said it. I just want to get this out there so that people can have a look at this game, and you don't have to watch a Twitch stream to do that. You can just watch this video and away you go. Let's talk about a few things that they went through in no particular order, just whatever came out of their mouths at the time. Fire spreads between structures and foliage. Now that's good to hear, so it does spread quite rapidly, and rain can put the fire out. They've been focusing a lot on beams in the game, that is building, pushing beams across, vertical beams, cross beams. There's a lot of reference to Valheim, and I think what they're talking about there is that when you start using beams, these structural elements, you can really make some beautiful buildings. And the beams also serve a purpose. We'll talk a bit more about that in a second. There was a question around, could everything be mined? And Dean said that the edges of rivers and mountains can't be mined, just purely because you can't mine every single thing in the game. It would just make it too problematic. You can obviously build bridges, and what they were looking at, the devs were building in the game here, and keep in mind, in this stream they were building. It was to focus on the building aspect of the game, and the devs had 30 minutes to build something, and then they were going to get voted at the end as to what they built and which was the best. So they had a bit of time pressure on there, and I think there was 3 teams. In this, it looked like someone was building a tree house and a couple of people were building lake houses. Someone asked a question about would there be warning about storms coming up, because there's been mention that these are going to be quite dramatic on the game, and Dean mentioned that there is a deployable device of some sort that will warn you when storms are coming in. Character progresses over time. That was talked about, and that is important. It was important for the developers to get that right, and if you look at the screens that flash up from time to time, you'll see there is a tab at the top which indicates that there is player progression and development, so that keeps you invested in the character. I like that. Beams, as I just talked about before, beams increase strength of structures, and he talked a little bit, Dean talked about how vehicles, obviously you can have weight, and when you put vehicles on top of structures, they need to be able to hold that weight. So reinforcing them with things like beams adds to the structural integrity. He mentioned that what they wanted in the game was 10 seconds of chaos. In the stream itself, it showed the developers really slowing down, maybe almost looking like they were encumbered. The storm was affecting their gameplay. He mentioned that it wasn't working correctly at the moment. It was too long, but they wanted it to be like when a storm comes in, you have this chaotic moment that you've got to see through. They haven't got that quite right, but that's something they are working on. There was talk about loose sticks on the ground can be picked up, and in play tests you can actually hollow out a rock to shelter in, and you can build in caves. The game will be coming in different languages, and the storm affects you differently in the different biomes. They've been playing with this dynamic, and they're still a work in progress, but that was interesting. So for example, if you're in the desert biome, the storms that come through will be different and affect you differently. They've been working a lot on pacing. Dean talked about how he had played the game just the previous night, and pacing was important, and what type of pacing do they want in the game. He talked about how that had been mentioned a fair bit in comments and streams, other YouTubers, and by the way, that was something I talked about. I believe pacing of the game is vital, utterly vital. And by the way, Dean, if you do happen to watch this, if you play Valheim, which I think you do, pacing in Valheim is crucial. It's what makes the game what it is, despite everything else. So pacing is crucial on the drops, and I personally would like to see varied pacing on varied drops. But I think they will find that a lot of people prefer a slightly slower pace. Frenetic games, yeah, people tire of that pretty quick. 3 different biomes per map. Forest, Arctic and desert is what is in this particular map. That's interesting. He talks about maps and biomes. So clearly what you have is the planet. The planet will be split into different maps or zones, and within those maps there will be different biomes that you can drop down to. They're obviously going to be on different levels of difficulty and complexity, but that's the way it's panning out. Between the biomes on the map, they are connected by passes between mountains, and sometimes caves will connect them. So there are these barriers between them, but they're sort of natural barriers. By the way, there was also mention that there are polar bears. Max player count on the maps is 8. And Dean mentioned that he wanted this game to be one of the prettiest survival games, and of course he then immediately moves on to optimisation, because as soon as you say things like that, everyone gets really worried, and rightly so, about whether it will run on their computers. I've looked at the game itself on my screen just in these streams, and I have the same concerns. One of the things that over the years, despite it being on the Unreal Engine, which is very, very, very good, you see the details, the sharpness of the lines, the sharpness of the images in the background, even when I'm looking at the screen right now. Yeah, optimization is something they need to get right, and I'm sure they're working on it. There are different building components. They have just put Thatch into the game. That is obviously something that you can rapidly throw together, but is very destructible, so a storm will come along and probably just blow it away. Then you have wood, which is what you're seeing mostly here, and you have stone, concrete, and maybe further things. The question, of course, was why would you bother building a concrete structure when stone is pretty bloody rugged and durable in itself? And Dean went on to explain that the different structures will be required, the different types of structures and what they're made of will be required for different complexities and difficulties in the biomes. So for example, you may need to build concrete structures in the really hazardous future biomes that will be rolled out. So advanced materials will be required for advanced biomes. Storms at the moment are a little brutal, they need a little bit of toning down. And when the drop is finished, there's always this question around persistence and can you return to that drop that you've been on. Now, Dean was emphasised, this is the second stream in a row that he's talked about it, that the data of your drop is saved to their servers. So there is the potential to do that, but they really haven't finalised the finer details about the drops, how they're all going to work, what we could do with them in the future. But what he was hinting at there is that you may be able to, if they choose to do it, return to drops and return to that place and to continue building. He was very clear to say that they haven't made those decisions, but there's obviously the capability to do that, and that's something that keeps cropping up in the streams. Trees fall in the opposite direction to where it is cut from. They are not going to be releasing the pricing quite yet. He was adamant that they were not going to be talking about pricing until they were 100% sure that their pricing model was correct, and he wouldn't get drawn on that anymore. They have not made a final decision on drop times. these are going to be potentially varied. They're still working on this. The pacing of the game is still being panned out, so it's early days in regards to that. There's more work to be done. It was interesting to see the fireplaces in there and the internal structures that they're building. I think that is quite an interesting dynamic as well. That gives the game a lot more complexity, a lot more interest for many players. There's always a lot of focus on building beautiful buildings. People like doing that in these types of games. Doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. You often go, what I built there was crap. I want to build a better structure next time. So having the capability to build something beautiful is important. I asked him a question about Joules, Joules, which is obviously an energy unit in electronics, and he talked about that they have a generic sense of an energy unit. To place things down, to deploy things requires energy, which you can get through burning wood or biofuels. It was still a little bit vague, and it's probably going to be quite a key part of the game, so that really needs to be fleshed out a bit more from my position. I'd like to hear more about that. And the building that the developers had been doing, they had been aiming towards the end to destroy it all and burn it all down. And I'll just let this run for a minute so you can see what happened to the bases they built.
Firework there, they've got the fireworkers out.
Okay, we've got a tree that's gone up in flames.
Oh, and the neighbouring trees, there you go.
Oh dear, it's all going up pretty badly.
It's getting wild. This is definitely the best part. Oh, there it goes. It's going to fall into the lake.
Oh, and we've got another one. Oh, a tree's actually fallen onto that.
Onto the building. See,
that tree just catches up.
Very quickly. Like, it's realistic, isn't it?
Yeah, we're still playing around with the speeds of some stuff as well, so expect to see a lot of change with that as well. And we're actually going to be, at the moment, we're not swapping the trees out for a burned out model, but that's coming. It's basically because forest fires has been something that they put in reasonably late. Now they've built with so many beams that the tree actually falling on the building didn't damage it that much. So that's the thing.
It damaged it a bit more.
Yeah, it damaged a little bit, but basically, they're cutting down another tree on it. They're really trying to.
Yep.
Oh, that one looks like it's smashed.
What do we say? Architecture and mayhem.
Unfortunately, we probably put a bit much smoke and the smoke particles, so we don't get to see a lot of it.
I should also mention here, if you didn't watch the whole stream, that Dean was quick to point out that the art of the forest fires needs a lot more work. This was just the very provisional fire burning effect, and you can see it's pretty rough. There's a lot more work to be done in the fire, the way it spreads. He obviously talked about the smoke, and the overall art that you see on screen at the moment is not reflective of what it will be in the end game. And one of the comments he talked about was that when a tree does burn and then you later chop it down, that will produce charcoal. Charcoal is going to be required for gunpowder. And really, there wasn't too much more said than that, what I've summarised on the screen there for you. What I will say is that it's fantastic to be able to view a little bit of the inside thinking onto these games. It does build up a little bit of anticipation, and they can get a bit of feedback from people who watch. I know they do read the comments and they are noting what people say, and they're obviously still doing a lot of playtesting themselves. So on that note, I will thank you for watching. I will be keeping a close eye on Icarus, and as I said, I am a small Kiwi YouTuber and I like the Rocketwerkz team. They live in New Zealand and it's good to see a local product, and they look like a really good bunch of people. And this game is interesting, it's exciting, and I'm really keen to see where it goes. On that note, thank you for watching. If you watched all this, that's brilliant. Most people only watch the first few minutes of videos. That's the way of life. If you have got this far and you want to keep watching more Icarus updates, and when it does come out, I will be playing it and looking at it and reviewing it and doing all that sort of stuff, then make sure to follow and do all that stuff. I've got social media, all that crap down below, and I put all the links in for all the Rocketwerkz and Icarus stuff down below as well. Thank you to Laurie and Dean for hosting this, and for the technical crew behind the scenes. It's always brilliant. And hopefully see you in the next chapter. Till then.